Alright, hello. Vince here again, Hudson Bonsai. Beautiful day today. I'm at the outside workbench and we're doing some work with eastern white pines. These are all eastern white pines. I can tell that it's time to do some work on these, some pruning, because the sheaths at the base of the needles are starting to shed. So that's the key, or the indicator that it's safe to start cutting this growth back without causing the needles to elongate any more than they already are. All these trees are pretty strong, so the needles are long this year. They've been fertilized, and I believe every one of these trees was repotted sometime in either February or March of this year. And they're all growing quite strong, they're quite healthy. Some of these trees had, this one has a bit smaller needles than the rest. So today I'm going to be pruning all these trees with the exception of this one. Like I said, this one really doesn't need it. I'm going to remove some of these second or third year needles that are growing down here, but that's about all that'll be done to this tree. The rest of these are just, the extensions are pretty long. They're going to need to be pruned back. So hopefully here you can see what I'm talking about, the sheaths at the base of the needles. They're starting to yellow, dry up, fall off. And that just tells me that this tree is finished with its foliar growth stage for this year. So if I prune it, the needles are not going to continue to extend. If you prune them too early, the tree is going to take whatever stored energy it had planned to divide up amongst all of the needles and put it into the ones that are left, and you can end up with needles that are, these are fairly long. White pine always has pretty long needles. These are probably about 3 inches, but they can get out to up to like 6 inches, which is, just, it's not going to look nice. You can reduce them quite a bit. There's another tree right here that has, significantly shorter needles already. This tree maybe didn't have quite as much energy as the other tree this year, and now that it's expended all of its energy, the needles winded up much shorter. So that's part of the reason that these need to be pruned, to limit the amount of energy that they're going to have for next year to push out needles. The less energy they have, the shorter those needles are going to be. And of course you don't want to take it to the point where the tree doesn't grow at all, but right now this tree is on a path to get longer and longer needles every year, so it needs to be trimmed back to control that energy. So now for some actual pruning. So first off, I'm going to look around this tree and see if there's any whorls, any groups of branches that need to be reduced. I have a real small branch in here. That goes. There's some dead stubs there, but I'm just going to leave those. Some crowning needles that can come off. Up here, got a group of 3. One of them is growing towards the inside. Just go ahead and take that one off. Next up here at the top, I have 2 branches here growing in opposite directions. I have other growth towards the front. I'm going to go ahead and take that one off. One more here. I think I'm going to go ahead and remove this one. And then I'm going to shorten each one of these branches a bit. cut between the needles. I'm trying to leave a similar amount of needles at the tip of each one of these branches. This branch actually needs to grow out a bit more, so I'm not going to touch that one. Even this top I'm going to reduce. Also go ahead and pluck a lot of these big long needles that are growing straight down off of the branches. And I can take some of the needles that are growing directly off the top of the branch. This is all old needles from last year that I'm removing. I'm not removing any of this year's needles. Okay, so as far as pruning, this tree is done. Maybe put some wires on it. But today I'm just concentrating on pruning up the foliage. Got another one here. Take off some of these old needles. Bottom and the top of the branch. Leave the ones on the side because that's where, you know, each one of these groups of needles can become a bud for next year. And if that bud is on the top or the bottom of the branch, then I'm not really going to be able to use it anyway. So I want to try to encourage any buds that might come out to be on the sides of the branch. These vertical bits, it doesn't really matter. This branch can continue to grow. It's still pretty small. Shorten this one. And I'm going to shorten the top. And I'm going to shorten this side branch. Okay, let's get that one into shape. This little cascade is the one that I said really doesn't need any pruning. You can see how small the growth that's on there now. I'm not even sure that's fully hardened off. I'm just going to pluck a few of these needles that are growing really straight down. But like I said, that tree really doesn't require much work at this point. Here's another one. This tree is also only had some very short extensions, nothing that I need to trim back, So all I'm going to do is pluck out some of these old needles off the tops and bottoms of the branches. May even in another week or so, when I'm sure these are completely hardened off, I'll take these clusters of needles and cut them a bit shorter because I don't want to remove any. And they are quite long. So this will be the last tree. This one has quite a nice trunk on it. This one was, I don't remember where I collected this, but this is a collected tree. So this was just kind of a little stump and a couple of short little branches. It's growing quite well. So I've got 3 branches here. Some of these needles. I need to remove one of those side branches. I'm not going to remove this one. I think this is actually the apex of the tree. Go ahead and remove this one. And I'm going to shorten this a bit. Go ahead and shorten this apex a bit. Down here on this kind of semi-cascading branch down here. Do the same thing. Remove needles from the top. Remove ones from the bottom. A little twig here in the center. Actually, it had a couple of old needles on it. Again, this is the same deal. I'll come back in another week or two and prune these needles off shorter. So I hope that gives you an idea of, you know, just how I use pruning to maintain and develop these trees. You know, white pine has its own kind of special timing, and it can be difficult to get the needles to become really small, but as you can see from some of these, they do reduce to a point. When these trees are a little bit larger, it'll, you know, be pretty reasonable to look at. So anyway, I've got a few more of these to do, and I got a pretty large one that I'm going to do another video on. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Watch the next one. Thanks.